right. So thanks again for joining. My name is Sarah. I'm the program director for the Executive Transition Program. Just started recently with the ESMT and took over this program actually from Jan, who's our fabulous speaker today. And Jan is also on the call in order to answer any additional questions that you might have, because he obviously has a lot of experience with the ETP program, but also with the ESMT. So very happy to co-lead the session today with him. Yeah, so with that, you can find a bit more information about me if you're interested on LinkedIn. Feel free to dive in and ask me any questions. But otherwise, I just wanna use this time today for Jan and to give you a bit of an idea of what the ETP is about. So yeah, what I will do today is give you a bit of an idea about ESMT first. Some of you may or may not know the ESMT or have experience with the ESMT, so I'll start there. Then we'll have some time for Jan to walk us through the value of errors and how failures essentially can accelerate your transitions or learning and development journey. So that will be exciting. And then I'll pick it up again to walk you through the ETP and what the program is, and then we have some time for Q&A. So with that, I'll start with the an overview of the ESMT Berlin. So the ESMT is a rather young university, but has really developed greatly over the last 20 plus years. It was founded by 25 big companies, really leading companies, certainly in Germany, but also globally. And you see those founders on the right side here on the picture. So we're very close to the business side and very practical in what we teach and how we teach. We're in the heart of Europe. We're in Berlin, which is a fantastic, dynamic place to really, learn and grow and be at the heartbeat really of what's happening in the world. And we have branch office as well in China. And then, what the ESMT offers is essentially master's programs, MBA programs, PhD programs, as well as executive education. These are, so as you can see, these are professional post-grad programs and professional development programs, and that's really what we're also known for and what we have expertise in. The branch that's relevant for us today is executive education. Executive education at ESMT is essentially a combination of open programs, which are for individuals such as you all, who can sign up for those programs as you wish. You can go deeper on a certain topic, or do it at your own pace. And some are a couple of days, some take longer. So that's really for individuals. And then we have customized solutions that are for organizations. So that's where organizations approach us and would like to have a targeted leadership development program that we customize for them and then deliver for them and their leadership organizations. And then lastly, there's also postgrad diploma that you can gain as you accumulate essentially a certain set of hours or days, etc., in terms of education through the ESMT. We, as I said, we've developed greatly over the last 20 years, and I'm really proud about the accreditations and the ranking position that we have. In fact, for executive education, we're doing really well, and for customized programs, we're actually number 5 globally. So very happy about what this team has accomplished over the last years. All right, we are here today to dive into the open programs part of it, and really the part that's designed for executives such as you and who really want to take a practice and action-oriented approach to their development and their journey of growth. And so that's what the Executive Transition Program is about. So with that, I'm going to pass it on to you, Jan, and take it away on a deep dive in terms of what you'd like to share, just to make us think a bit.
Okay, thank you very much, Sarah. And thank you also for that introduction into ETP and mentioning my former role. I'm a professor at ESMT. I joined in 2005. That was a time when ESMT was much smaller than it is today. And I was happy enough to see the institution grow to the size it is now, and what Sarah just introduced to you. Coming to the field of my research, I am a professor focusing on leadership in organizations, especially focusing on team interaction, team communication, team collaboration. However, I have a slightly dark streak in my research because I don't focus on success stories. That is what most of my colleagues are doing, focusing on best practice examples, learning from best practice examples. I'm slightly different. I focus on the bad stuff that sometimes happens in organizations and how that influences us. And I don't do the majority of my research in normal organizations. Actually, I focus on high reliability organizations. And there's a connection between the organizations I look for and the topic I'm dealing with, because in these organizations, as you can imagine, like hospitals, nuclear power plants, aviation, dealing with bad stuff often has severe consequences. And therefore, the way they look at these occurrences is somewhat different from what business is usually focusing on. And over time, I think there's something that normal organizations can learn from these high reliability organizations. And that is basically what I briefly like to show you today in our teaser session that is properly called the value of errors. Let's start with value of errors. And basically, Zara already linked to the title of the ETP transition program. Yeah? And the question is, can errors actually help you in the transition that you're about to make, help you to grow, help you to be more successful? And let me show you for the start a little piece that some years ago my wife gave to me when I was talking to her, explaining her a little bit what I'm doing. And then she got across this little piece of paper that is actually part of a tea bag. You know, tea bags, and they have paper on paper clips. And on that tea bag, there was a quote that's in German, but it essentially means take an error as a step towards success. And my wife slightly jokingly said to me, well, isn't this what your research is about? And actually, it's all about what I'm doing as research. So it basically summarizes everything. And we can stop here and say, okay, well, yes, we take every error that occurs as a step towards success. But is it really that simple? And the question that I would have to you just at the beginning is, where's the problem? Do you see any problem with that statement? Alexander, I can see you. Would you like to take the opportunity?
I actually would be fine with this quote, take an error as a step towards success, because I think we all have to learn from our errors. So I'm fine with that, actually.
Don't you see any problem? Have you ever seen a problem with that notion, where it was not seen as a sign of success? I mean, if it's so easy, we wouldn't have to talk about this, and organizations would be happy.
But probably it's not our standard habit, so to say. So maybe we are trained or educated the other way.
That's a good link.
I think you have to be aware of it to consider it the way you are going to describe it. But it's probably not the first thing you start with.
Okay. So thank you very much. Education is certainly one element, because when we think about our experiences at school, how nice was it when you wrote an exam and received, instead of a 1, which is the top grade in Germany, or a 6 in other nations, top grade, you received the opposite. You received a 4 or 5 or 1 or 2, depending on the scale that you work with. How lucky were you with these things? How were these kinds of errors perceived? Probably not that positively. And that is something that we certainly all grew up with. Other things?
Eric from Stockholm. I would say, I mean, I would agree to it that it's maybe more of a stepping stone towards success. But so maybe in the short run, swap erfolg. to something more like learning or learning experience, and which in turn would be kind of a prerequisite.
Okay,
to create
thank you, Eric.
success.
So you basically say it's a gradual thing, and it takes learning, but even that may be not that straightforward, because learning means you actually need to have the chance to learn. And if you, for example, do an error and you're fired, well, you may have a personal learning, but maybe the question is, where's the learning for the organization? But in fact, if you have an error that leads to learning, that ultimately should lead to success. Yeah. Okay. One more, Marine?
Well, I agree with what previous colleagues said. I think without failure, it's hard to explore new things, right? If you explore, don't fail, you will never see something new, and then you get stuck in daily routine.
Yeah. Okay. Exploring means going into unknown, and then you may end up with errors, but again, that may be uncomfortable for people. All right, but in general, it's not that far off. You would agree errors have the potential for learning. Well, let me take that a little bit further, that argument, why it's not that simple. Because as we all know, errors can lead to failures, and failures can have different consequences. But there are three types of errors or failures that we may consider, and they show that, yes, we have different acceptance levels for errors. Actually, they're intelligent failures, and this is something that often happens in research. You try something new, as Mari just said, yeah, if we never venture into unknown, we'll never learn anything. And one of these pieces was the medication of Viagra. I'm not sure if anybody remembers what the original purpose of Viagra was, but it was not designed as a medication for enhancing sexual activity, but it was actually meant to be a medication for lowering blood pressure. In clinical trials, it turned out that it didn't have the desired effect, but there were side effects. And from these side effects, actually, a very profitable medication was developed for Pfizer. And if we think about intelligent failures and errors that are associated with it, we would actually think we should promote these, yeah, because they help us, and if we fail fast, we learn fast, and we improve sooner. Everything's great. Then we have complex failures. Complex failures basically result from interaction of activities where we know what we should do, but the interaction may lead to undesired consequences. And a typical example is the design of the A-class car of Mercedes. I'm not sure if you remember this one, but here the problem was the car had a very high center of gravity that was not a problem in the design stages and all the tests until the car was in full production, and it went to Sweden for to be tested by an obscure auto magazine, and it showed that the car had the tendency to flip over when you do sudden steering movements at high speed. Now, this was not something that had been observed before in Germany because the test didn't require, the regulations didn't require the test. But when it was shown in Sweden that the car had the tendency to flip, what do you think the result of the company was at that time? Did they embrace the error? Well, actually, they didn't embrace it. Actually, they said, it's not relevant for us because this is a city car that's not designed for Swedish forests. You'll never see an elk in Sweden in cities, so you never have to make these abrupt steering movements. But then it turns out, well, if you are in a city, you may have children running around. Are you expected as a driver to just go straight and hit these children? Or are you more expected to make, again, sudden steering movements? And then the car would have the tendency to flip over. So ultimately, Mercedes had to give in and say, yes, it is a design fault. We have to do something about it. Does anybody remember what Mercedes did? Well, it was an engineering company. And they added a piece of software, the ESP, a design feature for the top class S-class model, but it helped to stabilize the car. And that is basically what helped in this case. If you are not able to anticipate, at least mitigate complex failures by doing something. But then we have the third kind of error, and this is the most annoying kind of error in organizations. And these are the preventable failures, where we know what we should do, but for some reason, it's not being done. And the idea is, let's avoid these things. Let's not happening these things because they're useless. You don't have anything to learn from this stuff because you already know. Now, what can we do to prevent these things? Well, there are certain areas, and I showed you, I mentioned this as part of my research, like these high-performance teams. This is the top aerobatic Swiss aerobatic team of the Swiss Air Force. And you can imagine it's pretty dangerous if some of them is doing an error in this close kind of formation, or if they are flying over space where they shouldn't fly. Now, how are they making sure they are not doing preventable errors? Any idea? It's not so simple, but it's Swiss, and they have a motto. And they say, we have 3 principles under which we operate: safety, precision, perfection. And this is also somewhat Swiss. You almost believe it. That's the Swiss kind of thinking. And if you operate like that, you're certainly capable of performing these maneuvers, not only in top weather conditions, but also under difficult kind of conditions. And this is the Swiss team flying over the town of Mümliswil on July 6, 2019. Anything wrong with this picture? Well, it's not so obvious. They're performing their maneuver perfectly. Everything's fine, with only one major flaw. They're actually flying over the wrong town. So they're flying over Yodel Festival, and people there are excited. Oh, great, we have this performance of the Swiss fighters. Nobody was expecting it, but they loved it. But people who were actually expecting that were quite annoyed. And the thing is, what would you do with this kind of failure? You could say, let's do fuck-up nights. But think for a moment. What they were doing was actually quite dangerous, because they were expecting to fly over an area with protected airspace, no other planes flying there, and no obstacles, nothing that they could hit, because they fly very low. Now, they were flying at a different location. No protection measures were in place. No obstacle clearance was assured. So is fuck-up nights really the format that you should use? What should be the consequence here? Well, actually, it's not that straightforward. And what we should think about in this case is, when we think about our failure tolerance, our acceptance of errors, we have to put them in context. And when we operate in environments with high degree of uncertainty, what has been mentioned in the beginning, I think it was Marin who mentioned, when you never go into the unknown, then you never learn. Well, that's right. And if we go into the unknown, we expect to have errors. That's the reason why we are so error acceptant, why we accept errors in basic science and research and development, because here we don't know, and we try something new and we learn and everything goes forward. But the more we move into an area where we know what we should do, complex services, well, not high degree of unknown, but we are more or less accepting error rates of 2 to 5%. This is typically the area of banking, banking, insurance. Here we have a certain degree of uncertainty that we're aware of, but we are not willing to accept a failure rate of 80% that would destroy our business. If we move into manufacturing, and I know some of you are operating for manufacturing companies, we're used to operate with high degree of reliability, and therefore we don't often have errors. We see them as disturbances. Yes, ultimately we should embrace them, but often they lead to significant costs. And this is something where we often try to figure out who did it, who was responsible, and then focus on why that person made the error. And then we have our reliability organizations, like the Swiss aerobatic team that I showed you. Airlines, when you go into an airliner, you don't like to think about how likely is it that I'm going to die because of an accident. Actually, you think about, is the plane on time or not, but you expect them not to crash. And the same goes with nuclear power plants and so on. Therefore, we have this very, very high failure threshold that we see here. So this is actually what we have. But then, how do we deal with errors? Well, let me come to the Swiss example, but also remind us, regardless of where we operate, whether we operate on the left or right kind of scale here, we have to keep in mind we're dealing with humans. And humans, unfortunately, are not perfect. We do make errors, and we make more errors when complexity is involved. And it really becomes troublesome when we have stress, time pressure, and complexity involved. Then error rates go up significantly. And this is something that we should keep in mind. So it always depends on the circumstances that we operate. What does that mean for the example that we have here? I asked before, what should we do? Well, the simple answer is, who is at fault? And it's quite easy to identify the person who's at fault. It's this one here. It's the leader. Yeah, and the leader chooses the wrong location because all others focus on the leader. Yeah? And if the leader is wrong, then the entire team is wrong. But is this the right focus? And actually, if you remember that everybody is capable of making errors, the answer should not be who's at fault, but actually to reflect on what happens. So it's not the question of who's at fault, but it's the question of what did we learn? What will we change? Now, but remember, it's not that straightforward because our expectation is somewhat different because of the organizational context we operate. The difference with high reliability organizations and normal business is they know this connection and they focus on this connection. And therefore, what they're doing is actually they focus on reflection. So it's when you have something happening, we often say we learn from mistakes, we learn from experience. This is not true. We don't learn from experience and we don't learn from mistakes. We learn from the reflection. And that means we need time to debrief or have team reflection session, whatever you call it. But we need this time actually to reflect what happened. So we have to think about what did we intend to do? What happened? How should we make this? And the case for the Swiss aerobatic team, the commander of the team, he was very straightforward. He actually talked to the press quite extensively. He gave interviews about this. And he said, it was my fault. I did it. And this is what I learned and also what the team learned. And there were a number of things that they learned from this occurrence. And it certainly helped them to make them better going forward. Now, what does that also mean? It is, and that's the thing that I hope you can take away with you. When we look at ways of how to establish a positive error culture, one of the main things to actually establish a positive learning culture and positive error culture in our organization is that leaders are willing to accept and admit their own mistakes. Now, it sounds easy, but if the organizational setting is not set for this, then you have a problem. Now, from a leader's perspective is you have to create an environment where people are comfortable with coming forward and admitting their own mistakes. But that means you have to provide some levels of safety. Now, how can you do that? Very briefly, because that's not the full session that we're doing, but that means acknowledge your limits. Don't think about yourself as being always the smart guy. Yes, you're very successful so far, and you've shown your capabilities, but you are, like every one of us, sometimes an idiot. And we have to be aware that we are these idiots. Now, you know that you're fallible. You're fully aware of that. the funny thing is the people around you are also aware of that because they observe you, they see you. So it's not a secret. The only thing that often is forgotten, but that's a very crucial thing, is they don't know that you know. So be aware that it's helpful to talk about this, and then you can have all these wonderful experience of having errors as learning opportunities, growing from errors, being more successful. Now, this is one element that I'd like to show you. When we have the ETP, like with all the other sessions, you will have an interactive experience discussing this. We will, in my session, I will talk about this extensively, talk about more aspects that are linked to this. But for now, I would like to leave it here. If you're interested in advance to the, if you'd like to attend the ETP session, or if for some reason not, there's still some stuff for reading. And we will provide you with all the slides so you can read that. And I hope this provided you with some kind of insight. And at this point, I would like to hand over to Sarah again. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Jan, so much. And yeah, this was really a great and representative insight into what the program will look and feel like, because it's truly interactive. It's about combining, leading research with actual application in the business environment, and really bringing it home to your own organizations and to yourself. So thank you so much, Jan, for this sneak peek. And yeah, I loved your question around, what can we learn from this? What do we have to change to do differently in the future? The same obviously applies to every individual, right? And that's also part of this transition journey in the ETP, where we learn about what transition are you going through, or will you be going through, and what does that mean for you, right? How do you need to change, and what does that mean for your environment? So with that said, I'm going to transition quickly back to the slides here, and share a bit more of what the ETP is actually like. And what we're going to be doing there in the remaining few minutes or so. And if you have a question, as I said, as we're approaching the end of the overall 40 minutes that were scheduled, raise your hand or chime in. That's really just fine, and you'll get access to these slides as well. So what the ETP is about is essentially a journey that we created for you, which is a 3-pillar journey. So initially, as you're moving from a functional manager role or into more general management responsibilities, it's important that you feel confident about the mastery around general management tasks, right? So that's understanding how the different functions like IT, HR, finance, and marketing, etc., how they really work, but also more importantly work together to drive the business. So that's module 1. The second piece is around, now you have that mastery content and functional wise, what does that mean to navigate in the broader perspective, right? Versus your competitors, versus the trends that you see in the macroeconomic sphere. So really understanding that strategic picture, that's going to be the second module. And then the focus of the third module is essentially leadership practice. So how do you show up as a leader in that environment? How can you transition or adjust to the increasing challenges that you'll be dealing with, and become more effective, really, for the success of your organization, as well as for yourself and your teams. So as I mentioned, it's a journey. So there'll be 3 face-to-face modules where you will meet a bunch of similarly and like-minded folks that go through similar transitions and journeys, where you can really exchange those ideas and be on that journey together. And then in between, we will have online modules and sessions to keep that transition going. And also, as Jan said, right, a transition takes time. Right? It's not something you can do within a day, 2 or 3. It's good to be on a journey together and really foster and accelerate that transition with some peers and some strong faculty that guides you through that process. And then, yeah, towards the end of the journey, it ends in May, really. And so this year starts in November, ends in May. You'll have that community that you can rely on, and you'll be part of an alumni network that gets together on a regular basis and that you can tap into really going forward. And you'll also experience coaching along the way. So you'll get coaching from your peers, you get coaching from faculty, and there will be a lot of facilitation around your journey that will be customized to your needs. So I think that's really exciting, actually. So what's the program about? We talked about the different topics that will be covered, right? So there will be, the advanced general management competencies that will be tackled, understanding the interdependencies of the functions in the broader ecosystem, but also your leadership presence and who you want to be in your next level role is going to be critical, and then eventually how you get from today to that future state, which is that transition management piece. And there'll be a bunch of formats that we'll deploy: in-person modules, online sessions from really speakers from various institutions that we partner with, hands-on applications and simulations. That's really key, right? Making it tangible, making it personal for your context, your organization, your situation, and then really getting that support through coaching and through experiential learning as you are on that journey. Eventually, the learning goals really of the program. So what do you walk away with? That's the question, right? So once you're done with that program, you'll walk away being more confident around navigating that more complex space that you'll find yourself in. You find you have mastery around, the general manager responsibilities and tasks, and really can ensure that success for yourself and the organization. You have stretched yourself and learned a ton about yourself through your own journey, but also from others. And eventually you'll find yourself having an accelerated transition journey, right? Something that, you come out of this and you will not, you will be surprised by how much you've accomplished essentially in that period of time. And then you can tap onto this, right? Learn from that going forward, be part of what we call the ETP Salon, which is that community of ETP folks, that have gone through that journey in the past, but will also go through it in the future. And you can really learn from each other and support each other in the future. And you'll receive that postgrad diploma that I mentioned earlier. Yeah, so really with that, I'll end the formal part of this talk today and the presentation by just saying, if you're really interested in this, if you want to learn more for this year or maybe next year even, feel free to reach out, right? We're here to help, to guide, to support you in the journey already, even if you haven't formally signed up yet. Beatrix, who's also on the call today, she's always, willing to support and answer any questions that you might have about this program or potentially any other program, to what extent that fits your needs. I'm happy to answer any questions. Feel free to connect on LinkedIn or so. Happy to help and guide you through that. Or if you have more general questions around how to apply and how the logistics behind the scenes work, you can also just reach out, through that general contact information here at the bottom. But bottom line is really, there's a ton more information available also on the website. So if you want to learn more about the ESMT and the program, please visit our website and download the brochure, look at the video, see what else you can find, and then yeah, absolutely reach out. We love to talk and hear your thoughts, and also if something doesn't quite resonate, give us that feedback and we can work through this together. But yeah, with that, I'm gonna just pause for another second here, and we have 1 more minute technically left, and really be open to questions or reactions.
Maybe a personal note from my side to you. What you will experience is a group of like-minded individuals, but also people from different backgrounds, because we not only have people from business, but we also have people from NGOs, for example, from different kinds of organizations. Yeah, not all are business. Therefore it's a very diverse background, and not only the content part of the ETP is important, but also the interpersonal part. And I can only say that there's a spirit growing along the 3 modules that connects the people well beyond the actual course, and it's really a community that developed out of that, that supports each other on the career trajectories in different organizations, and really it broadens your mind and prepares you for accepting these top management positions that you're all envisioning in the future. I think, Marine, you have a question?
Yeah, just a short one. So is the applications for the program you now explained starting from November, this is still open, and for how long is it open? Or let's say, what is the deadline to apply?
Yeah, it's still open, and I would actually encourage you to just reach out and maybe have a chat with Beatrix at this moment and just learn more and also understand the process. So we don't really have a final deadline as such, but we do obviously have a limit in participants in terms of what's possible, right, to bring onto the program, because we do want to keep it small and intimate, right, for the learning journey. But Marina, I appreciate the question. So maybe reach out to Beatrix and take it from there if that works for you.
Understood. Thanks.
Yeah, super. All right, so I think with that, I'm gonna wrap it up for today. Again, thank you so much for joining today and for your interest in Jan's presentation, and but also for the interest in ESMT and the ETP program. Would love to welcome you all in the program this year or next year or whenever you feel like it. But definitely appreciate your interest, and yeah, please forward also if you feel like somebody else might be interested after listening to this. So thanks again for joining and for taking that precious time of yours. And I'll talk to you all hopefully soon. Take care.
Thanks also from my side.